I'd like to begin by assuming an extraordinary event. Let's suppose that in the middle of some day, there's a late-breaking national news story carried by all of the major networks. The networks report that, according to witnesses, a huge book dropped out of the sky and into the outfield of Yankee Stadium. The Yankees were practicing at the time, so there were a fair number of witnesses to the event. The book came to rest on its back cover and occupied the area of about the size of a car. On its front cover was written in English the title, The Book of God, and the text inside was modern American English. After extensive investigations by experts of all kinds over several weeks, no one could devise a credible scenario by which the book was created by humans and delivered to Yankee Stadium by humans. I invite you to pause the video on the next slide and offer one or more explanations for the foregoing event. As another example, let's suppose that you claim to know exactly what will happen to you when you die, and that in particular you will enter afterlife, and the afterlife environment will be of a nature that you can describe in great detail now. Let's further suppose that you gain consciousness one day to exactly this scenario. I invite you to pause the video on the next slide and offer one or more explanations for your new experience. As a final example, let's suppose a real scenario. You're confronted with 3 books, and each book has its proponents who claim that their book constitutes divine revelation. The 3 books are, of course, the Judaic Bible, the Christian Bible, and the Muslim Quran. By the way, I spell Muslim with 2 S's because this spelling provides a more accurate transliteration of the Arabic. I invite you to pause the video on the next slide and state what you believe as to these claims of divine revelation. What is the point of these examples? I raise these examples in order to illustrate that there is no such thing as automatic knowledge. What we identify as knowledge is a construction of our mind in response to our experiences. And these experiences are themselves a construction of our mind in response to external perceptual stimuli, internal mental stimuli, and our ongoing intellectual processes. In the first example, a book evidently dropped out of the sky into Yankee Stadium. And we're faced with trying to explain the reports of this event, an event that no one can convincingly explain was a result of human activity. Since the title of the book is The Book of God, we may be inclined to claim that the book is a book of divine revelation, or we may instead be inclined to claim that it is a hoax by Satan. In either case, we'll likely withhold judgment as to which it is until we find out what the book says. In the second example, we're faced with a situation that matches our expectation for afterlife. If we have no memory of having faced death on earth, say by enduring a terminal illness, or by falling off a cliff, we'll try to determine if we're just dreaming. If we conclude that we don't seem to be dreaming, we may next try to determine if this is afterlife as we conceived it, or if instead it's a hoax of Satan. Finally, in the third example, we're faced with rendering a judgment as to whether any of the 3 sacred books of Western religion, the Judaic Bible, the Christian Bible, and the Muslim Quran, is divine revelation as is claimed by its respective proponents. Okay, so there is no automatic knowledge. Ultimately, each of us faces the challenge of pursuing knowledge to the best of our ability, and this pursuit includes evaluating claims of knowledge espoused by other people, such as religious people, or scientists, or whoever. In this video, I'm going to clarify what the process of determining knowledge consists of. More specifically, conservative adherents of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam believe that knowledge starts with their particular book of ostensible divine revelation. However, it's obvious that this claim is false, because a person must first conceive of the idea of divine revelation, then they must draw the conclusion that one particular book is such a book based on relevant observations that they make. This intellectual process entails the pursuit of knowledge, and we want to determine exactly what this process entails. As I said in earlier videos, I begin my book by establishing that knowledge is a result of reason applied to experience, where experience encompasses all human experience, including perception, thoughts, imagination, and emotion. I establish that reason applied to experience is the source of all knowledge. This is easy to do because experience is, after all that we have to work with, and because it's obvious that knowledge must be rational. For the opposite of rationality is irrationality, and irrationality in the extreme is insanity. Now, establishing that knowledge is a result of reason applied to experience doesn't say anything about the character of knowledge, other than that knowledge is rational. So in Chapter 1 of my book, I develop a theory of knowledge in which I precisely characterize the nature of knowledge. I characterize knowledge in the following way. Knowledge is given by the best predictor model of our observations, where best refers to the simplest, most accurate model. Thus, knowledge is given by the simplest, most accurate model for predicting our observations. This concept is best understood by reading my book, and for now I just want to give you an example of what this entails. My example is that of geocentrism versus heliocentrism. That is, an Earth-centered model of the universe versus a Sun-centered model. No doubt you've heard that the geocentric model of the universe, which dates back to Ptolemy of the 100s, was becoming quite cumbersome by the 1500s due to the excess of complexity needed for the model to accurately predict the observations that astronomers had been accumulating over the intervening centuries. As a result, in the 1500s, Copernicus proposed a heliocentric model, and this was refined by Kepler and Newton in the 1600s. Overall, a well-formulated heliocentric model was now able to predict the observations of astronomers with far less complexity than a geocentric model could. So the geocentric model was discarded in favor of the heliocentric model. Now suppose that two models can predict observations of interest with equal accuracy. Then the simpler model is the one that gives us knowledge, and we discard the more complex model. On this basis, scientists of the 1600s discarded the geocentric model in favor of a well-formulated heliocentric model. To see that simplicity is a crucial criterion of knowledge, notice that without the simplicity criterion, I could claim that the Earth is flat and is resting on the back of a turtle, and that the reason that scientific models don't reveal this is that we are suffering from a systematic delusion. What eliminates such absurd claims is the simplicity criterion, for the simplicity criterion tells us that the assumption of the turtle adds needless complexity to the model. It is the simplicity criterion, in fact, that tells us that such a claim is absurd. Strictly speaking, what we're saying is that the claim is absurdly complex. We're saying that the claim is needlessly complex to an extreme. You've probably heard of Occam's razor, but this example shows that it's not a matter of shaving off needless complexity as if we have some choice in the matter. Rather, it's a matter of adhering to the simplistic criterion in order to save ourselves from idiocy. Okay, so knowledge is given by the simplest, most accurate predictor model for our observations. What this means is that we formulate the most accurate model that we can, and while we're seeking to achieve accuracy, we keep the model as simple as possible. Thus, we seek to maximize simplicity subject to maximizing accuracy. I encourage you to view Part 2 of the video on how we develop ethical principles, because I show there that the foregoing model of knowledge explains how we develop ethical principles based on reason applied to experience. I define the concepts of knowledge, skill, and wisdom, and the parallel nature of these three concepts greatly illuminates the nature of knowledge. I'll close by presenting the relevant slides without explanation.